Why is everyone driving slower than you an idiot and everyone driving faster than you a lunatic? And what has that got to do with poverty? I'm Rachel, I'm a public and social policy consultant, and I want what I know to be what you know. Public and social policy is social psychology at scale, and today we're learning about the fundamental attribution error. So, much like when we're driving around and the person in front of you is going slowly, slower than you want them to, and you want to get past them, we think that person's an idiot. We think they can't drive, they don't know where they're going, they don't know how to operate a car, they don't know the rules of the road, they're an idiot. We very rarely think perhaps they're lost, they don't know where they're going and they're looking at street signs, or perhaps they've got something very fragile in the back seat and they need to drive slowly. We look at their behaviours and we make assumptions. Now, to that slow person, you're the lunatic, and to that fast person, you're the idiot. But we never put ourselves in this position. This is the fundamental attribution error. We judge others by their actions and we judge ourselves by our intentions. The exact same fundamental attribution error, the exact same cognitive bias is at play when we look at poverty. We blame individuals for structural outcomes. We see somebody in poverty and we assume that they are lazy, feckless, haven't worked hard enough, and that they're there because of choices that they've made. Very rarely do we look at that person and think they're definitely a victim of low wage or financial precarity or precarious jobs in the gig economy, definitely a victim of the housing crisis or wealth inequality or late stage capitalism. We don't. We look at them and we either pity them or we blame them for the position that they're in. But it also happens when we look at success, when we look at wealthy people, and the hard work narrative really reinforces this. And we think they must have worked hard, they must have been an absolute grifter, their side hustles paid off. Wealth is seen as an earned virtue, not a structural advantage. And this fundamental attribution error reinforces the myth that merit produces the outcome. We completely ignore the context. We don't look at the number of people with private education who outstrip those of us with a state education when it comes to success. We don't look at intergenerational wealth. We don't look at the education that their parents had or their grandparents had. We don't look at housing security. We don't look at things like that when we're attributing success and merit to, wealth. We see this bias in the policy making that we have. Things like means tests, sanctions, behavioural conditions in order to get benefits. These are all predicated on the fact that we think people need to be nudged into behaving better, to behaving more morally acceptably, because the fundamental attribution error tells us that they're in this position because it's their own fault. Massively it shapes public attitudes, but worst of all, some of us internalise this. And when we internalise it, it comes out in the form of shame. People begin to believe that their poverty is a moral failure and not an economic structural disadvantage. When we internalise this, it stops people from getting the help that they're entitled to. It stops them from claiming benefits or financial support that they're entitled to. It stops them from getting debt advice. It stops them from seeking help. So the emotional consequences, chronic stress, the isolation, the low self-worth, these emotions replace collective anger with private shame. And this is exactly what the system relies on. So just like the driver that's going slower than you for no apparent reason other than they must be an idiot, have a think about it. Why are they driving so slowly? Why are they driving so fast? Fair enough, some people are just shitty drivers, but it's the fundamental attribution error. We judge others by what we see in their actions and we judge ourselves by our intentions. The more you know, we need better policy.